Well, it's a cloudy Monday morning here. The first Monday, I believe, in the month of November. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. And just to add that we hope that the cloudy Monday, when it pours indeed, or if it pours, will bring along with it certainty and the positive, unlike all of the drama that we had last week on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. How was your weekend, by the way? And here's to a beautiful week, and here's somebody looking really good for a Monday.
Oh, because thank you so much.
Hi, Kelly.
But you look amazing as well.
Thank you.
How was your weekend as well?
Well, thankful. Let's just say we're grateful for the weekend.
Sometimes it appears like
you
the
don't want to know.
Never enough.
Absolutely.
But well, it's a brand new day, it's a brand new week, it's a brand new month. And of course, as Bukola will always say, welcome to your perfect morning starter. I am Kelly Egiga. And of course, so much to unpack for you today and indeed the week. Over the weekend on Saturday precisely, Nigerians and social media went agog when US President Mr. Donald Trump, perhaps the president that knows how to use social media to its fullest in the world. No other person tweets like Mr. Donald Trump, no other president. Sometimes I wonder if he does post this tweet himself or he has someone who manages his tweets and posts for him on social media platforms. But I mean, over the weekend on Saturday, that was the main story when indeed Mr. President of the US made that post on social media, making allegations of a genocide here in Nigeria, and the fact that the US was going to take swift action. And I tell you what, when he made that post as well, he got some sort of response. Some senators as well also retweeted the president's posts. In fact, the US Department of War, I think, also posted Mr. President's post when he made another post that and threatened military action, you know, in Nigeria. And so it's been a weekend of a lot of talking points, a lot of argument and debates. Those citing international laws, how does it work? Some cite the treaties and Geneva Convention and some of those agreements signed. How is it going to play out? There are those who say, you know what? I mean, this is just Mr. Donald Trump. He has a track record of making some of these kind of threats, imposition of sanctions that never get to see the light of day, threatening to do. And in the end, you don't get to see him do some of the things that he boasts or threatens about, or will always threaten. Some say he's just bluffing and all of that. And in the midst of all of this was when one of the president's media aides, Mr. Daniel Bola, now responded to say, you know what, President Bola Tinubu is going to meet with the president of the United States of America. Remember when we talked about the 88th session of the UN Assembly and how we had criticized President Bola Tinubu for not attending that meeting in New York, when we said, you know what, it would have been interesting to see our president get to meet with the big boys at the UN Assembly in New York. And perhaps we thought it was an opportunity for him to, you know, get to meet with some of the world leaders. What our president actually sent Mr. Vice President Kashim Shettima, all due respect to his office and all. So this time around, he's having to meet with Mr. Donald Trump. And I think I'm worried. I'm worried, Nigerians, because when I see the personality of the US president, how he's able to intimidate world leaders, no matter what country you represent. I'm not sure, apart from the likes of the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, he has always humiliated presidents around the world. And he does it better to African leaders. Remember when the 5 leaders from, I think, East Africa and all of that went to visit him, and how he practically ridiculed some of them and all of that. So that's my worry. How is our president going to match up with the president of the United States of America, with all due respect to him, based on the antecedents of US President Mr. Donald Trump? So perhaps, I mean, our president tags or likes to call himself the city boy. So we're anticipating that particular meeting And we hope that the presidency will not backtrack on that meeting with the U.S. president. So we anticipate that meeting, and we'll see how the conversations and diplomatic ties will indeed go. Because, I mean, the U.S. has been one of our allies for quite some time now. I'm not sure we want to begin to switch our friendship with the U.S. Bukola.
Well, just for context, Kelly, this has been long in coming. Recall the legislation by Senator Ted Cruz before the U.S. Congress, seeking to designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern because of what he termed the killing of Nigerian Christians, which, according to him, is genocidal. And that legislation, I believe, had passed first or second reading at the U.S. Congress, but it has not become law. But the U.S. president has gone ahead to exercise his own executive powers to designate Nigeria as a country of concern. And the question on the lips of many is, why the hurry? Why the sudden interest in Nigeria? But don't forget that there was a similar status conferred upon Nigeria during what many will call Trump 1.0, during his first term. So it's a similar hardline stance towards Nigeria. Now, recall also that Nigeria became part of BRICS, maybe non-official status, but that partnership, according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, had begun to yield some results also. And the U.S. president, you know, characteristic of him, had tweeted on his Trump Truth Social that, you know, those who are identifying with BRICS risked sanctions, risked tariffs, and then the tariffs came, you know, but then the argument went on that it was not going to significantly affect Nigerians, you know, and that trade war went on, you know, globally. But the truth of the matter is that whether we like it or not, killings are ongoing in Nigeria. Both Christians are being killed and Muslims are being killed. So it will be, you know, difficult to say, or you're unable to prove that the government is complicit in killing, you know, in the killings and the ongoing killings. That is not the truth. That does not reflect what is actually happening. But what is not debatable is the questions that we put through about how, whether or not the government is doing enough to stop the killings, and why did the president have to wait up until this time, you know, before that conversation would be had with the U.S. president. During the UN General Assembly, just about 2 months ago or so, questions were being asked about why Mr. President did not participate in that meeting. And I believe, Kelly, we were together at the time also when you asked, you know, that very critical question, because there have been an opportunity for the president to engage with, you know, world leaders, including the U.S. president, one-on-one, and to address some of these issues. Amid all of this also is the concern that more than 2 years down the line of this administration, we still do not have foreign affairs ambassadors, you know, at the commissions around the world. So it's a very big conversation, especially because of the warning that now came through by the U.S. president that if Nigeria does not tackle this, then the U.S. president, the U.S. will be forced to sending, you know, soldiers into Nigeria. And that no one should take lightly. So we'll be putting all of those questions through to our resource persons today, trying to find out the implications of this and why Nigeria should not take this lightly. And of course, perhaps there are political implications to all of this as well, besides the socio-economic
you cannot rule that
concerns.
away.
Yes, absolutely.
International politics will always get to play around some of these issues. But well, let's get to do you some of our highlights and what to expect for today, Monday, November 3 on the show, guys. All right, so first we get to spotlight precisely this 15% approval for petrol imports and tariff by the federal government. There's some sort of misconceptions as to what exactly does it imply. We'll get some perspectives from the nation's capital in just a moment.
And that's not all. Of course, politics is high on our agenda as well this morning as we look at the continuing crisis tearing the PDP apart. Is this the last straw that has broken the camel's back too many times over? But is this the final for the PDP? We'll have that conversation as well. Of course, not forgetting, we've talked about this at the beginning of the program, allegations of Christian genocide, genocidal killings against the Christians in Nigeria. The president, according to the presidency, is now set to meet with President Trump. We'll find out all of the implications of that on the program later today.
Plus, on the program this morning as well, we get to talk train derailment, as we saw over the weekend, the Warri type of train derailment again. I mean, this train derailed only 4 days after resumption of the train service was announced. So why are we having this consistency in train derailment? I mean, I know it's a global concern, but I mean, only 4 days after resumption, and then we're back again. We'll get to find out why. The MD joins us on the program this morning. So that's our outlook for you this Monday morning. Up next on the show is our national dailies. We'll get to take a look at some of the front pages of newspapers, and that's in a moment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back, and we start with the dailies this morning, and our public affairs analyst, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, joins us on the program. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, you're looking dapper as always. You know, we should come to you for lessons on how to start off the week and how to end as well.
I'm humbled, thank you.
All right, let's start with New Telegraph this morning, and of course, it reflects on the start of the program, you know, some of our thinking. Genocide against Christians, allegations, Tinubu to meet Trump soon. Of course, that's ascribed to the presidency. And we have some writers here to give us an insight into how the Telegraph is reporting it. Don't test Trump. U.S. won't look away. That's ascribed to Rep. Miley Moore, warning Mr. President. That's a House of Reps member in the U.S. And of course, there's this one. We're working to resolve misrepresentation of Nigeria. That's ascribed to our own representatives here. NAS slow response may have prompted Trump's hammer. That's ascribed to New Telegraph's investigation. But of course, you know, Mr. Akintobi, another part of this narrative, some would disagree vehemently, you know, that there isn't genocidal killings against Christians when you look at the trajectory of attacks in Nigeria's north, central, Plateau, Benue, and the U.S. lawmakers, or if you like, media, they're backing this up with visits to Nigeria. We've seen commentary on mainstream media about their own investigations in internally displaced persons camps, where interviews they have conducted are to the effect that most of those who are putting up in those camps are Christians in the north. How do you weigh in on all of this?
One thing is clear is that Nigeria does have an insecurity problem, and killings are actually happening in Nigeria. Now, who appointed President Trump the policeman of the world to where he will now interpose himself in a sovereign country's affairs? It speaks to the fact that our public perception in terms of the way the information about what is happening in Nigeria is leading to global perception that our government is not addressing the issue properly. Whether that is true or not is an internal issue. I don't think people in other countries, in other places who are not front and center in the middle of the mayhem, have the moral right or even have the factual evidence to be able to make claims as to what is happening or not. Now, if you look in the social media space over the weekend, opinions are almost evenly split between those who believe there's a systemic genocidal effort to eliminate Christians across Nigeria and those who think that all religious faiths are being targeted. So the question is, what is actually the truth? The one thing that's indisputable is that this problem has defied solution for decades. It's a 20-year problem that succeeding governments have failed to resolve. So it looks as if the government is either incompetent or unwilling or not willing to make the tough decisions. We see superficial moves of changing service chiefs. When I was here last week, we were applauding the fact that a recent revamp of the security architecture had occurred. But my view then was we've had many of these in the past and it hasn't addressed the issue. So I think President Trump should look more inward and address the issues in his own country, gun violence, mass shootings, all kinds of issues like that, that is bedeviling the American society. I hear a lot of conspiracy theories about, oh, he's after our oil, he doesn't like our support of the wants of Palestinian states, the new Dangote refinery that is going to create mayhem to America's dominance in supplying refined products. I think that it's a lot deeper than that. I think there are more political underpinnings to why America is suddenly sticking its nose into what is really not its business. But we have abdicated the moral right to stop other people from expressing an opinion, because globally, all you hear in the news is these continued killings every day. And I think, my own personal opinion, is that they are targeted killings. Yes, in the Benue and the Plateau, you see Christians being killed. Zamfara, which has had one of the worst insecurity problems, and Borno, they're 95% Muslim, and yet killings are happening in those places just as rampantly and wildly as in the Plateau and Benue states as well. So I do agree that certain people are targeted for elimination. It depends on the locus of operation. Those in the states where Muslims are most populous, those states that are under attack, there Muslims are being killed. The states where Christians predominate. Look, for example, what happened in Owo. In Owo, they went into a church. So that was specifically targeting Christians.
And there's southern Kaduna as well, where you have predominantly Christians.
Absolutely. But in the last week, we've had situations up north where Muslims have been killed. So how do you now say that you use the statistics to count and say there have been more Christians killed than Muslims have, or there have been more Muslims killed than Christians have, and you now use that to make a broad-based generalization that there is a specific genocidal... I heard it on the news, an American commentator said there's a genocidal convention going on in Nigeria, as if there's a systemic, concerted conspiracy of people who sat down and mapped out where are Christians, where are all the Christians, let's go target them here, here, here. I don't think that is what is happening here. But without a doubt, we have an insecurity problem that the government has failed to adequately address. Well, when the new service chiefs were sworn in last week, President Tinubu gave them a charge. That charge sounds like a broken record because we've heard it all before in the past, and it hasn't made that much of a difference. But I think rather than criticizing America for their interest in this situation, I think we should engage them more positively on how can we work together to resolve this issue, as opposed to threats of invading us. Can we deal with technology transfer? Can we talk about military support and aid? Look, for example, when Trump was in office the first time, he was the one that engineered this Super Tucano sale to us. And when he came back the second time, he saw that the military aid he gave to us hadn't reduced the problem at all. So he's had an interest in this not just today, but since 2020 and before that. So I would say that while I'm not happy that a foreign country is poke-nosing into our business and is telling us off on a global stage, at the same time, I think what that should do is encourage us internally to unify and work on this problem with homegrown solutions. And where we need help, we should ask for it, but we should not necessarily kowtow to foreign interests who feel like because they're dominant in world politics and world geopolitics, they can tell us where to get off the train. I don't agree with that.
Well, Mr. Akintobi, because this is a major concern, it reflects on the major newspapers today. Take a look at the Nigerian News Direct. It says, Tinubu to meet Trump amid U.S. threat. Underneath that rider there says, cut ties with U.S. if Trump fails to withdraw military threat. That's coming from Sheikh Gumi. I mean, really very controversial sheikh. But so we are anticipating this particular meeting, and going by Mr. Trump's meetings with presidents around the world, I don't know if you're worried, Mr. Akintobi. I don't know if you're worried, or if I should be asking you, how worried are you? Remember when President of Ukraine was, visited Mr. Trump as well, how he was practically humiliated, not just by the president, the vice president, J.D. Vance, and even the media questioned, the media in the U.S. went as far as being so petty to ask a president of a nation why he was dressed that way. So this meeting, this high-profile meeting we're anticipating, do you think that, I mean, this is our president, the president of the most populous black nation in the world. Are you worried? If you had the chance to speak to Mr. President Tinubu, what would you say to him in terms of preparing to face Mr. Trump?
The way to handle a bully is to stare him down. And the one thing that sticks in my head, I remember when President Trump met with those 5 African leaders, and he was shocked that they could speak English eloquently.
Yeah.
And that goes to show how little he knows about the world outside America, especially Africa, which makes it difficult to accept his pontification that he understands the problem and has the solution and can issue threats. I believe that President Tinubu has what it takes to hold his own in a meeting against Trump. Why? President Tinubu has the facts, as opposed to what President Trump has could be disinformation or inaccurate information. So President Tinubu will be discussing from a position of strength in that he has the data, the statistics, the information, and the knowledge about the true situation on ground in Nigeria. So what his thrust will be to correct what we all believe is a misconception on President Trump's part. We're not doubting that we have an insecurity problem. We are not disputing or denying that Nigerians are being killed of all religious faiths, and that in some areas Christians are persecuted, in other areas Muslims are persecuted, and I won't even go beyond saying even Ifa worshippers and traditional religions are not also being persecuted in some other areas. So we do have an insecurity problem, and I believe if that is the rules for the discussion, no matter how condescending President Trump tries to be, as you said, he'll try and bully you, he'll try and belittle you. And
ridicule you.
Yes, I think President Tinubu has enough on the ball in terms of political strategy, in front of intellectual capacity. I think he's a smart, intelligent person.
But does he even need to meet with Mr. Trump? There are those who argue that why you're a sovereign nation, why head for, why it looks like it's Nigeria that is practically begging to go meet Trump to clarify from Mr. Trump, who is the president of the world, like some people would target the president of the US. Does he have to go even meet him in the first place?
Well, remember, there's a threat of cutting off aid. There's a threat of sanctioning some of the political players themselves. One of the newspapers today is saying 12 governors, some judicial officers, they all risk visa bans, asset freezing, and all kinds of other sanctions if they are proven to have aided and abetted any sort of religious persecution. Then, of course, there's aid and there's trade. And of course, you know, Nigeria is doing a lot with China now, doing a lot with Russia, and America is not too happy about that. But the truth is, there's still a very strong relationship between the US and Nigeria, both in trade, in information exchange, and even human capital exchange, that is a very diplomatic togetherness that we wouldn't want to rock that boat too much. So I don't think he should shun such an opportunity for such a meeting if one arises. I read somewhere today that it's America's vice president that's going to meet with President Tinubu. If that's the case, I don't think there's parity there. I think that in itself sends a message that we're looking down on you. If it's the vice president of America that will meet with if it's J.D. Vance that is scheduled to meet with the president, I would say he doesn't need to go. But if it is president to president, there's a lot to be gained, first of all, to correct any misperceptions, and then to also work out a working relationship about how America can assist in this fight. Because it seems to be a fight that has evaded solution. So we do need help. And President Tinubu can create an opportunity, first of all, in his presentation, in the fact that how he paints Nigeria as a country that's almost uniformly divided between Christians and Muslims, and how we've succeeded in living in harmony all these years, and how this whole thing is just a disgruntled group, a very small minority who's creating all this mayhem, even though they are divided into different groups. You have Boko Haram, you have ISWAP, you have kidnappers, you have bandits, you have all sorts. But at the end of the day, they still constitute a very small minority of our population. And if you look at all of us as a people, by and large, most of us are happy to live together in harmony, in peace, as one people. And we will not allow a small group of misfits to destabilize that. I think he can sell that message very well to the American president, and it'll make a big difference.
And beyond, putting the record straight about what exactly is really happening in Nigeria, is also the need to demonstrate to the U.S. president, if indeed he meets with Trump or even Vance, the political commitment, to tackling these issues. The nation watched and in confusion when the president doubled down on the nature of the killings in Benue being religious, communal, rather than what the people have over the years said is a systematic attempt to dispossess them of their ancestral land, and that the killings were deliberate and targeted. But the president doubled down on what he thought to be the reason of, for the killings. And those are the, factors that aid our confusion rather than our clarity on what the administration is doing or its commitment, to tackling these killings.
I'll give you two examples. Look at the Dapchi girls, for example. 110 of them kidnapped. All of them were released except Leah Sharibu. And guess what? She was the only Christian in the group. So what does that telegraph in terms of the reasoning or the rationale behind that happening? Look at the situation of Deborah Samuels, for example. There were two other people who are Muslims within that same period who were also convicted of blasphemy, who served a prison term, or who served a term of punishment of some sort for the same exact thing Deborah Samuel was accused of doing. In her case, she was lynched and killed. So there is no doubt that there are some very narrow parochial interests that have an agenda behind these killings. And as you said, the president could have taken a more public stand about it when he had the opportunity to, and he missed that opportunity. So maybe this is a chance to tell the global community that he's committed to the fight, that he himself has no skin in the game, so to speak, in terms of whether Muslims or Christians or traditional religions are treated any differently from how he sees it. We're all the same. We're all Nigerians. And religion does not divide us, should not divide us, despite our differences.
Indeed. There's this Nigeria which is, focusing on politics of the main opposition party, but we're totally out of time. We've dwelt so much on the threats of invasion as a result of the alleged position of the U.S. on killings that are genocidal against the Christians. And, rightly so, by the way. So we'll anchor at this point, and thank you very much on Mr. Dayo Akitobi for coming on the program this morning. We do appreciate your thoughts, as always.
My pleasure.
Mr. Dayo Akitobi is a public affairs analyst.
Good morning, Nigeria.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll begin the very first leg of our conversation. What is the implication of the proposed 15% tariff on imported petrol for Nigerians, especially you who must buy petrol every other day. Stay with us for this first one. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. This is the Morning Brief. Let's head straight now to our first conversation. On October 29, President Bola Tinubu approved a 15% import tariff on petrol and diesel, a policy expected to raise the landing costs of imported fuel. That decision and announcement has now, of course, generated a lot of mixed feelings and reactions. But what exactly are the possible consequences? Kelvin Emmanuel is an economist and he joins us live now from our Abuja studios. As always, Kelvin, great to see you. I remember our last conversation some time ago. But because you're an economist, for starters, walk us through what exactly this implies. Because there's that confusion somewhere that there's that debate, there's that arguments about what exactly this means. So you are an economist. Walk Nigerians exactly what this implies for the average Nigerian.
Kelly, good morning. Thank you so much for having me as always. Good morning to you, Bukola. It's always a privilege to be here. So it's important for us to understand that the ad valorem of 15% import duty on petrol is in line with Article 6 of the World Trade Organization Charter on what is called countervailing and anti-dumping. Especially when it's been proven that the imported products poses material harm to domestic industries. Now, let me give you perspective and let me explain, because the oil and gas sector is a little bit complex. So let me break it down so you understand why they say countervailing and anti-dumping for imports that constitute material harm to domestic industries. Because NMDPRA as a regulator does not operate standard ASTM labs by itself. It doesn't have labs by itself. It outsources testing to third-party companies. And because the certificate of quality of petrol and diesel determines the price, the COQ, what you have is companies, and there are shipping trails that has been provided in the past that shows that there are traders that actually go and buy condensates in Eastern Europe. They refine to naphtha. They send to either Malta, but mostly Lomé now. In Lomé, Togo today. And you see, it's interesting we're having this conversation, Kelly, because as it stands, Togo is currently controlling Nigeria's energy security. And you say, how do I mean? What does that mean exactly? In Lomé today, right, there is a 2 million metric tons, or 2.6 billion liters, because 1 metric ton is about 1,341 liters. 2.6 billion liters of floating, storage, and offloading that is also used as a bunker hub for blending. And the difference between blending in an FSO and blending in a refinery is that an FSO does not have what they call a hydrodesulfurization unit that recovers sulfur, right, and converts it into sulfuric acid for other productions. So you have a situation where traders buy condensates in Eastern Europe, mostly Russia, that is under oil price sanctions from the European Union and the US government. They bring it to bunker hubs and FSOs, blend it. You have high sulfur that doesn't match with what is stated in the PIA. The sulfur level for West Africa, according to ECOWAS, is 50 parts per million. So because NMDPR has failed to enforce the PIA on sulfur limits, it's also failed to provide a framework for regulating things like octane level, distillation level, cloud point for diesel, flash point for diesel. You have unfair competition because you have traders dumping products that fall below the regulatory standards and limits that is approved for the industry. And that is unfair competition because the grade of product they bring into Nigeria should actually be below 500 naira per litre. But they are pricing at import parity, which forces the hand of the domestic refiner that is refined according to the standards set for in the PIA. So what the presidency has done with this directive is basically aligned with WTO Article 6 Charter that says that you can impose an ad valorem or an import duty on products that causes material harm to domestic industries in line with countervailing and anti-dumping measures. The implication is that the marketers will be forced to either align with sections 317(7) of the PIA that says that the regulator is supposed to provide a backward integration plan for midstream refining in Nigeria, or they will be required to take products from the domestic refiner who, by the way, has met up and exceeded Nigeria's actual daily consumption. Kelly, today, the regulator does not have a scientific framework for measuring actual daily consumption. And I keep saying that that 50 million litre number it's parading around is false. It cannot prove it.
All right. Mr. Emmanuel, so if I understand your analysis, this policy aims at protecting our local refining. But the fear and concern for some energy experts is that this could possibly worsen inflation. This could possibly increase the cost of living pressures. And that's because we are hearing that this could lead to the rise of the pump price to about 150 naira per litre, an increase at about 150 naira per litre. So speak to that. And then my second question would be, when you look at our local refineries, I mean, the Port Harcourt refineries, Kaduna refinery, and even the Warri refinery, do we have the capacity? Because these refineries have not been functional. Right now, the person who appears the savior and messiah for Nigeria and perhaps the continent is the Dangote refinery. So when you look at these local refineries, which for God knows when and how, it has refused to work, do we have the capacity in terms of our infrastructure and the refineries to get them working enough to provide for Nigerians these products at a more reduced pump price?
Kelly, very important questions you asked. Look, I sympathize with Nigerians because, you know, the cost of standard of living has dropped as a result of the deregulation of petroleum. The fact that the government has removed its hands from under recovery of subsidy, even if there are still issues about the presidency not disclosing the subsidy savings to FAC on a monthly basis. You know, I sympathize with Nigerians. But we have to understand that, look, Kelly, the question I like asking is an hypothetical. If, for example, there's a war globally, right, and a repeat of what happened in the Black Sea in 2022 when Russian naval vessels shut down the route for commercial vessels to enter into the Black Sea and back and forth, and for shipments of grain, wheat, for shipments of diammonium phosphates, for shipments of muriate of potash, which are major exports from Russia and Ukraine to pass through the Bosporus Channel, Turkey into Europe. And there was a surge in the price of grain. You know, if there was a war and naval vessels block the shipments of key routes through the Cape of Good Hope, through the Straits of Hormuz, from the east to the west, the Middle East, and Nigeria is not able to bring in products into the country, how many days do we have? And this is a question for the National Security Council. How many days do we have until Nigeria runs out of food and out of petroleum products? That's a question I want us to ask. So you protecting your domestic industries from material harm by traders who are bringing substandard products that falls below regulatory limits is actually in the interest of Nigeria's national security. It's in the interest of Nigeria's national security that Nigeria has crude oil feedstock dedicated to domestic refiners. It's in the interest of Nigeria's security that you don't have traders sabotage the success of the Dangote refinery. Now, the question about the price of PMS going up because of an introduction of 99 naira per liter, that will be offset over time if you have a consistent supply of crude oil feedstock, and you can have a situation where Dangote is not importing $700 million worth of crude oil monthly that he usually, naturally should have remitted to the CBN to do balance of payments and help with the strengthening of Naira. Because I've said it over time, Kelly, the calculation of the price of PMS is very transparent and straightforward. If you want to understand how it works, you simply multiply the price per metric ton for the grade of PMS that is being sold in Nigeria, which is 50 ppm by the Dangote refinery, not the ones that are imported. 50 ppm sulfur petrol by the exchange rate, the current exchange rate, divided by 1,341 liters, which is the amount of liters you have in a metric ton of PMS. You get the price. Then you add the refiner's premium. Then you add the cost of transportation or equalization down to the retail stations around the country to get the recommended retail price of PMS. That's the pricing template. Okay? So this 99 naira ad valorem on a liter, it will be offset over time by focusing on supply of crude oil feedstock and strengthening the naira. That's the solution to bringing down the price of PMS. I've seen people say that, Dangote is going to cause a monopoly and is going to end up naturally dictating the price of PMS. And this is false, because the PIA actually gives the regulator the exclusive right to enforce a pricing framework for the industry, so which is not possible because Dangote has a license called License to Operate an LTO that can be withdrawn if it violates the PIA. So I don't agree with the argument that it's going to cause a serious tick up in the inflation numbers. I've always said that the inflation numbers that NBS is parading is not correct because the inflation numbers doesn't account properly for the contribution of the different areas to the weighted baskets. For example, if you look at food, they revised from 60% to 50.8%. And then they grouped 5 different items, including water, household rents, gas.
But Mr. Emmanuel,
when in fact, the contribution of those items is actually higher than they've classified as 15.8%.
Mr. Emmanuel, before you begin to talk about
the issue about cost price index, of course.
Mr. Emmanuel, before you begin to explore the inflation numbers, let's stay with the 15% proposed tariff on imported petrol. You have said it would not significantly affect petrol price, but that may not necessarily be the case because we do not even know how many petrol marketers are doing business with Dangote. We do not know how many petrol marketers are actually importing. We've had seasons of conflict, that of Dapman with Dangote, which we're not even sure has been resolved. And upon the announcement of this proposed tariff, petrol marketers across the country had their pricing boards blank. And you know what that means? For those of us who buy petrol regularly, it's an anticipation of a policy change and perhaps, positioning to increase price of petrol. So one can almost go to the market to say, if indeed this policy is implemented by the 21st of November as proposed by the government, that petrol marketers would increase the pump price of petrol. So the question really is, are the mechanisms there, as you've talked about the pricing templates that regulates petrol price, are they there to ensure that, petrol marketers who are not doing business with Dangote will not increase the pump price of petrol?
I said earlier that quality determines price, okay? And for the quality of products that is brought into Nigeria in violation of the PIA, the landing price should not be more than 500 naira per liter because NMDPRA cannot come out and say that the marketers who import products into Nigeria have met up with what they call the AFRI 5 standard of 50 ppm sulfur or petrol imported into Nigeria. Okay? So And if you look at that executive order, you see that it says that the ad valorem also is a measure to guide against what they call collusion in prices. And then you go back to sections 59 and sections 107, sections 59 2A and sections 107 of the Act that establishes the Federal Consumer Protection Council. Yeah? And those sections actually says that FCCPC has the authority to enforce against what they call oligopoly and price collusion. So when you have a situation where importers are blending products that fall below the standards set by the PIA, and then they are colluding to set a particular price, it's against Nigerian law. It's anti-competitive, and it causes material harm to the domestic company that has invested billions of dollars in doing backward integration in line with 3717 of the PIA to supply the market. Dangote has enough stock to supply the Nigerian market based on what it's producing daily. It does 45 million liters of PMS, 26 million liters of diesel. In fact, I'll tell you, Bukola, see, if NMDPRA does its job and sends out its people around the country to places like Ogara, Koko in Warri, Madala, Suleja, take samples randomly without any notice for the diesel that is sold at dump sites and depots. And it goes and it runs a test for cloud point, for flash point, for distillation level, for sulfur. It will find that for flash point, there are diesels that are sold, that are imported into Nigeria, that are blended, that falls below the flammability ratio of 66 degrees centigrade that is set by the regulator. Okay? So you can't talk about price of petrol or diesel in Nigeria without talking about quality. So why are they selling for the price they are selling and then applying transfer pricing by wanting to increase the price of PMS above 950 naira per litre when the quality of PMS does not match the price that they are quoting for the landing? That's the question I have for the importers.
Emmanuel, so,
that's the question the regulators should ask, and that's the question that it needs to answer and operationalize the PIA on.
Well, let's get to more questions for you quickly because we have to wind down this conversation. So there are those who argue that perhaps the PIA accommodates issues around importing. You have kicked against it. Perhaps you can walk us through, because some people argue that the PIA does accommodate importation. And then my second question would be, you made some very strong allegations around Lome and Togo, and I wish you can put some names to some of these allegations and accusations you're making. 317
of the PIA actually restricts the giving of licenses for imports to companies that hold crude oil refining license. There are about 31 licenses currently. I think for Dangote, that already are scaled from LTE, license to establish, to approval to construct, the license to operate. He doesn't need to import refined products. He is refining crude oil in Nigeria into derivatives. But for these other companies that have crude oil license, crude oil refining licenses, right, that don't currently own refineries in Nigeria that are importing, I think the government needs to review it and say that there should be a sunset period where if you don't convert that your LT to LTO license, the government is going to withdraw it within 3 or 5 years. Okay? Number two, the PIA says that if there is evidence that the domestic refiner has exceeded Nigeria's actual daily consumption, the government has the responsibility and obligation to review those import licenses. Okay? And then you said that I made strong allegations. Look, Kelly, in the world of maritime and shipping, even if you turn off the transponder of a vessel, there are companies that track every single cargo or bulk, dry bulk or wet cargo that goes around the world. You can't hide it. All right? It's a fact. It's a fact, verifiable fact. And I stand to be quoted. There's a 2 million metric ton that is equivalent to 2.6 billion liters floating, storage, and offloading facility owned by Nigerians in Lome, Togo.
So we have established that
today,
petroleum. So what we have established
that is used for blending.
Yes. So what we have established is that the Petroleum Industry Act.
It's a fact.
Yes. Well, what we have established is that the Petroleum Industry Act does accommodate importation but with certain conditions. Is that correct?
Met. That's the question we need to ask.
All right, let me
So if you have a PIA that gives you specifications and guidelines for the quality of products you're bringing into the country, that should naturally determine the price. And that is being violated because the regulator does not have a lab to test and confirm that the quality of products they bring in is in line with the Petroleum Industry Act and the guidelines from the operationalization of that act. Then can we say that those conditions have been met? And is it fair competition to domestic refiner that has invested billions of dollars for backward integration in line with the PIA? Are they causing material damage, which is a violation of Article 6 of the WTO guidelines on anti-dumping and countervailing? These are the questions we need to ask.
All right.
Because if we don't obey the laws, then we're a banana republic.
Mr. Emmanuel, you still didn't mention names, but it's okay. We understand that. You said that the legal framework also provides a component for the regulation of price. So is government imposing the 15% tariff on imported petrol because its agency failed in its work?
Bukola, simply put, absolutely yes. NMDPRA has failed to operationalize the PIA. They have failed to do their job. They don't have labs. NMDPRA earns levies per liter of petrol, and they earn other kinds of fees, and they have sufficient revenues to be able to implement the infrastructure for lab testing across Nigeria, which is very key for regulating midstream and downstream activities for transportation fuels. But it has failed to do that. And it has outsourced the testing of these products to third parties whose integrity cannot be verified. So the failure of NMDPRA is what has necessitated the government, the State House, to implement an import duty based on Article 6 of WTO Charter on countervailing and anti-dumping. Absolutely yes.
All right. There's so much to explore on this particular subject. We may have to have you yet again on the program because we must anchor at this point. And thank you very much for your time. Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel is an economist who has come through on this particular conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bukola. Thanks for having me.
And from this point, we move on to the next leg of our conversation, which is, what took the internet by storm and indeed mainstream media over the weekend. The threat of invasion put out by the U.S. president on his Truth social media platform because of the killings in Nigeria. He has said that if the killings continue, if Christians are not protected, the U.S. would have no option but to invade Nigeria. What are the consequences or what are the implications of this falling policy direction of the U.S. government, which seems to have been coming, repeatedly over time in the last couple of weeks following that legislation by Senator Ted Cruz before the U.S. Congress? Let's have this conversation this morning on the program. And joining us, we have Mr. Chukwuma Ude. He's a global affairs analyst and the founder, Foundation for Industrialization and Orientation Network. He joins us virtually from Texas, the United States of America. Mr. Ude,
good morning, Bukola.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
As we, positioned earlier on the program, this has been long in coming. The straining of diplomatic relations with the U.S. government over the last couple of months, from tariffs to Senator Ted Cruz's legislation before the U.S. Congress, which has not come through, by the way. And another has been followed up by the same senator proposing to end Sharia law in Nigeria. And some would say this bothers on Nigeria's sovereignty. But give us a sense of the thinking in the U.S., because this has even gone beyond the U.S. Congress. There are conversations being had on the U.S. media, and that's one of the reasons that we, brought you on the program, so you can help us put it in context. What is the thinking, the narrative that is before the U.S. media about the killings in Nigeria? And do you believe that it is one-sided, or you are convinced that there is indeed a point to this disposition that the killings in Nigeria are more targeted at Christians?
Thank you very much, Bukola. The honest truth is that people are dying in Nigeria. And it is very unfortunate that the government that is responsible for ensuring that there is safety for life and for property has not been able to provide that to Nigerian people. Now, President Donald Trump has decided to step in. A lot of people might view it as an overreach, which you might want to say is true. However, the fact remains that Nigerians are dying, and our government appears to be complicit in the list over this issue. And it is now become a global issue. So we're hoping that President Tinubu will take actions that will at least quell the issue. One of which I expect is there needs to be a high level of arrest, because it is completely impossible that the DSS does not have names of people who are sponsoring these attacks. We might want to say, oh, there are Muslims that are also being killed, because I've had conversations. I grew up in the north. I lived in Jos, and one of the reasons why I left Jos was because of the crisis. So it is very unfair when people say, oh, there's also killings of Muslims, which is true. But there's also the issue that some of this killing of Muslims are liberal Muslims. However, this is completely irrelevant. What is important is the Nigerian government tackling the issue. It is over 10 years now. Over 10 years. Nigeria Army led ECOMOG in West Africa to ensure that there was peace brought back to Liberia and in Sierra Leone. So Nigerian military is not inadequate to tackle Boko Haram or whatever military said. So what I think is very important and crucial right now is for President Bola Tinubu to first and foremost revoke any form of amnesty going to the Boko Haram members. And secondly, we need a high-profile arrest. I believe that this will quell the issue to a very large extent, and at least give a sense to the global community that something is currently being done to resolve the issue. But if the APC government thinks that they're going to resolve this with some level of propaganda, or going to, like I was listening to the Senate president the other day when he was like, oh, they need to have a team go to the US to tell them that, oh, this is not just a Christian genocide, that people are just dying and people are being killed. I don't think that's acceptable. I think what needs to be done is there needs to be some level of high-profile arrest. There needs to be a revocation of the amnesty given to Boko Haram. And lastly, it is important that those who have been sent into IDP camps begin to return homes, and the government supports them to rebuild their communities and restart their lives. Yes,
Mr. Ode, thank you so much. I mean, you have also mentioned that you actually lived in Jos, the capital of Plateau State, where it has been a subject of these attacks for many, many years, historically. And then you've mentioned IDP camps as well. I visited a few in Maiduguri and in Borno states generally, where I got to see a lot of Nigerians displaced and housed there for calling IDP camps homes for many years. So this conversation is really, really timely and sensitive as well. You would imagine that these threats from the U.S. president, the U.S. Department of War, the senators in the U.S., this, as you would imagine, over the weekend, the last 2 days, has unsettled Nigeria to a very large extent. But there are those who argue that there is a political undertone to Mr. Trump, and they say that this is not unconnected or can't be pushed away from or not connected to the 2027 elections. And that's the argument for some of them. The fact that it looks like because there is an election just around the corner, and whenever there's an election, we always get to see these kind of interests and play out. So I wonder how you'd respond to that. What exactly perhaps is the interest of US President Mr. Donald Trump in this matter at this time? There's some also question the fact that we see there is some sort of agreement and compromise between US President Donald Trump and the presidents of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky as well, where we understand maybe some of the natural resources in Ukraine, the US would somehow have to explore some of their natural resources. And they say perhaps there's some sort of interest as well in our natural resources as well here. How do you respond to some of these arguments?
Again, if we want to discuss natural resources, it's a global market. Everybody has interest. The duty of Mr. President Donald Trump is to protect American interests all over the world. It is his responsibility, and I feel he's doing his job and he's doing it right. The problem we are having is our president protecting our interests? Is our president protecting our interests? The fact remains that whether we like it, whether we don't like it, there is a major issue. The minerals in the far north, there's a lot of mineral resources in the far north, but I believe it's an open market. And anybody who has interest, we're more than happy to have Americans come and trade with us. We're more than happy to have Chinese trade with us. So that is the least of our problem. But the fact is that Mr. Donald Trump has a responsibility to protect American interests. President Tinubu also has a responsibility to protect Nigerian interests. So at the end of the day, we can all come to the table and discuss.
Yes.
And when there's an issue of an election coming up in 2027, it doesn't negate the fact that Nigerians are being killed. And the government has not, in the last 10 years, been able to identify or hold anybody accountable for the killing of Nigerians. And it is even more sad that the Senate president came and sat down and said that yes, Nigerians are being killed, but it is not just Christians, that both Muslims are equally killed. And in my opinion, it's beginning to look as if it's a genocide against the poor. Because if you take the stock of the people who are being killed, it looks like it's just poor Nigerians who are living in rural communities. And whether we like it, whether we accept it, the fact is that it is Muslims, extremist Muslims, that are perpetrating these crimes. And it is not possible that these people are not funded by some interest, wherever or whoever they are. But I know for a fact that the Nigerian government knows who is funding Boko Haram. I also know for a fact that the US will probably have intelligence on what is also going on. So let us act right. It is long overdue. Mr. President, my appeal is take action, revoke whatever amnesty that is being given to the Boko Haram people. This is not the time to discuss amnesty. First and foremost, let us get the people in IDP camps back to their homes. Let us fund them to restart their lives. Then we can begin to discuss de-radicalization if and only when peace returns to these places. But we cannot be talking about assimilating a people who are taking up arms against the state and are killing Nigerians, and then we're funding them and also assimilating them into our military. And this is clearly has caused problem for the Nigerian army in itself, because there's been a lot of ambushing, there's been a lot of killing of our own gallant men and women in the armed forces due to this assimilation that has happened. So what is very, very important for us is for Mr. President to please take action. Let us find who are those who are sponsoring this crisis. It is disgraceful. It's sad that it has to be President Trump who is saying it, but it is disgraceful that for more than 10 years, we're not able to identify, or we're not even able to hold anybody accountable, and these killings have gone on unabated. So whether an election is coming on in 2027 is irrelevant. What is important is that there's a man who is in charge, and his name is President Bola Tinubu. And it is very important for him to take responsibility and ensure that...
Mr. O'Day, your final points can hardly be ignored because one would ask, what is the value of human life in Nigeria when people are killed unprovoked, and, the numbers are pretty unsettling. Sometimes we talk about 200, sometimes we talk about 100, and you wonder if indeed they're, people or animals. But let's go back to, let's remain with, what may be political undertones beyond the reality back here at home. Some would say this is an agenda that is being pushed by the Christian evangelicals in this current administration. And besides that, there's also the argument that, these Christian evangelicals, or if you like, the Republicans more appropriately, are the ones that are disposed to arms. And that concern that, the continued instability of in Nigeria is profitable to them because of the sale of arms. Well, under the first Trump administration, the arms were, the laws were relaxed in favor of Nigeria, and arms were sold to Nigeria. Is that also part of the narrative shaping this foreign policy disposition of the Trump administration to Nigeria?
Thank you again, Bukola. It's also very important that we understand what is going on. Mr. Trump is not acting alone. Neither are the American evangelicals acting alone. They're acting on the appeal of Nigerians. It is the Nigerian Christian community that have come to the United States after numerous calls for the Nigerian government to act. So whether the American government intends to sell arms, I don't even think it's appropriate to sell arms to the Nigerian government at this point, because between 2019 and 2020, there was a supply of Tacoma jets. In fact, there's also been issues with the Nigerian Air Force, whether it was a mistake or I don't know what they said, had mistakenly bombed an IDP camp. So we need to be very careful at this point in time. We need to tread very, very, very carefully.
All right.
I do not support any country to invade us. I think it's an overreach. And I believe that it's timely for Mr. President to visit President Trump and have a conversation and assure him that Christians and every Nigerian will be protected.
All right. Well, we have to we have to leave it here, Mr. O'Day. These conversations will continue, especially as all eyes are now on that meeting between our president and the president of the U.S. We do not have all of the details just yet, but we're looking forward to that meeting. And there's a pressure and argument as to, will this also change the dynamics of 2027? Will Mr. President perhaps now field a candidate with a Christian background this time? We will watch and see this speech. We must thank you indeed, as always, for your analysis.
I'm expecting Mr. Peter to mind the situation like the APC did in 2014. I hope he does.
All right, let's leave it at that. Global Affairs Analyst, Mr. Chukwuma O'Day, is also the founder, Foundation for Industrialization and Orientation Network. Thank you indeed for joining us on the program live from Dallas, Texas.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
Well, and from there, we switch gears to another very interesting conversation, and that has to do with the Warri Itakpe train derailment in the Agbo area of Delta State, which occurred over the weekend. But we have updates for you as we're joined this hour by the Managing Director of the NRC, the National Railway Commission, who joins us live on the program for Abuja studios. Mr. Kayode Okwefa, it's always great to see you this morning. For those of us who know you a bit more and have covered some of your style of leadership, you are a workaholic and you can be very, very passionate about your job and the things you do. So, well done to you. the train service, a lot of Nigerians who even came from outside of this country visiting have commended the NRC. But this train derailment in Warri Delta states is only occurring 4 days after the resumption was announced. And so that's why we are concerned, Mr. Okwefa. Why is this happening?
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Channels TV. And I want to thank you for giving this opportunity to speak directly rather than getting wrong narratives from the many other people. Let me also say that 2 months ago, the line was put on hold, and we were not pushed. We just decided to put it on hold because we felt there were need for some safety and security needs. And we reopened, and I will tell you what happened. Also, let me quickly say here that we apologize to Nigeria one more time, because what is expected of the corporation is 100% perfection. There's nothing like 99. We need to be 100% right at all times, because lives and properties are at stake. When I was on another TV station like yours, just after I resumed, I made a statement that we met an organization that in medical terms we would say is sick, but not in intensive care. So we took that organization to an intensive care, and it became stable. And at that time, I said recovering. We have gone beyond the stage of recovery. We are at a stage where we are fully stabilized, but you will still see some hiccups and some things they call a resurgence or recurrence. And those are what you see when you see these flashes. When we shut down Itape some 60 days ago, it was deliberate to prevent incidents. And during that period, we fixed almost every kilometer of the track. We had to fix issues. Also, we have to replace clips, pandros, and bolts at so many areas. And we also discovered that on this track, there are regular vandalization, not unique to this site, but on many other sites that are in the bushes. But our responsibility is to secure them. And we have put up so many measures. However, when you have them in the bushes and there are security concerns around the area, you may have to do this every often. And our philosophy is, as many that are removed, we will replace within hours. And that you will note that we have done severally. Even when they were removed at midnight, we got them ready before 8 a.m. and the train will move. In this particular instance, there are about 503 people that are supposed to be on board. 446 were supposed to go beyond Agbo Station towards Opara, where towards Abraka, where the incident occurred. And we want to say that all 446 that were supposed to be aboard were accounted for. And we took them back with the same train. You know, the train has two ends, the front and the back. The rear loco took them back to Agbo, and they were safely disembarked. Some decided to stay in the train. They were disembarked, and they were provided for. We provided water, drinks, and some light refreshment for them to pass the night under security watch. Also, at the site, that particular night, we discovered that there were 4 fish plates. Fish plates are flat irons that are used to join where the rails meet each other. There were about 4 of them that were removed, and possibly the cause of this. And you can see on the screen, there were also nuts and the clips that were removed. And one will commend the driver for the way he managed the situation, because the train actually drove for some distance before stopping. So it is not about 4 days after. It is what would have happened if we had not taken the preemptive action within that 60 days. So, however, The train passed through this same junction, it's not a junction, through this same route earlier in the day from Uyevu in Warri to Itakpe via Agbo, the same Agbo. And these clips were noticed to be there. Because at the guard, at the back of every of our train in this neighborhood is what we call the guard train that watches over what is going on behind. And we still have men working on a daily basis on these tracks. The particular area where these incidents happen is between Agbo and Abraka. I think they call it, let me call it, well, I don't want to murder the name. It's Ororibe community. In that area, close to Abraka, we have not operated at that station for like, since July, I think it's July or June, for security reasons. The security agencies declared the area unsafe because there were communal clashes and there are some other issues not meant for TV discussion. So it's an area where we have not been physically working in some time. But we want to thank God that even during this incident, the security men played this good job and they secured the entire place from 8 p.m. till the daybreak and 8 p.m. till 11 p.m. Yesterday when we safely returned the remaining passengers who decided to go by train rather than go by buses. We also faced a lot of issues. As soon as we brought them down in the morning, we went to town in Agbo to look for buses to convey them to Warri, pending the time we do recovery. 26 of them said they would not go with the buses, and they stayed till 9 p.m. when we had to take them by the same train, through the same track, under the same condition to Warri, and they were also returned safely. So it's not about the 4 days that it happened. It is about what we averted. And I want to assure Nigerians, we are determined. We're out of the sick bed. We're out of intensive care. We are out of recovery. We are now determined to go full blast. And we'll take 1 kilometer of track, 1 meter of track after the other to ensure they are safe, they are secured. And for all our lines, we will continue to do this. And if there is a need to short a line, we will not fish shy. But we assure you, very soon, we will take this railway, national railway asset, national railway corridor, national railway system to a level that we will have this kind of incidents.
All right, if I may come in there,
so,
Mr. Kwefa,
you take full responsibility.
I think this is more than the fact that the leadership of the corporation averted it. It is the fact that it even happened at all. In August, the NSCDC arrested a truck of, suspects who had stolen huge amounts of rail tracks along Nasarawa. So it may even happen again. And the last time we had you on the show, I asked you about, more assuring plans of protection of the rail tracks, and not just the rail tracks, indeed the rail operations itself, such that in the future, travelers can travel via Nigeria's railways safe and secure, that they would not be attacked. So is the corporation, the leadership of the corporation, thinking about an intervention that will ensure surveillance, 24-hour surveillance of the rail tracks, and indeed to ensure the security of travelers on the rail?
Let me say it again, that we are a highly responsible organization, and we are also very responsive. And we will continue to maintain and secure natural assets at our disposal. And we are not working alone, because we don't have the all to do it alone. You have the police, you have the military, the Nigerian army, and you have the civil defense, then you have the vigilante, you have the community, all of them are working. And there is a 24-hour management of the situation. When incidents occur, yes, you are right, issues like this will be flashed. And let me reassure Nigerians that we will continue to put on the best in us to make sure every incident like this also bring out the best in us. We keep learning, but not to learn with 1-2 accidents that are too many to cope with. And that's why I said we will continue to push until we get all the areas to the best of our knowledge. Now, secondly, let me address the issue of technology, security, physical, whatever. We will continue to secure. We are using combination of everything possible. Everything possible. I won't discuss that on the media. And that when you have arrests being made, it is also a testament that the security operatives are also working. Now, how did those things get out? Those things are not really moved the moment you have them arrested. Don't forget, the entire Aba to Port Harcourt line was stopped for a while. That made the North Central lines idle, and that causes the removal of what people call scrap. And that's why we say we don't have scrap. We have serviceable and unserviceable materials, and we are appealing to Nigerians to stop coming to look for our materials, calling it scraps. Now, on the issue of arrest, we arrest on a regular basis, continuously, and we are still working with the police, the civil defense, and the judiciary to make sure that those arrests does not become repeated. Right now, there are judicial issues that have to be solved. When you arrest a vehicle carrying materials, the court will release the vehicle. They will release the materials to the police or the civil defense or to us. We are also moving to make sure we get these vehicles seized so that those people who make those vehicles, so it's a multiple, don't let me go into that. There are many issues involved, and we are working on those ones. I agree with you. It is that it should not happen, and we are going to work to make sure it doesn't happen. That's what I will say for now. We will continue to do our best. And let me tell you what happened yesterday. When I got to Agbo, I went there myself yesterday, and I met the passengers, and I was shocked when many of them refused to go by road, and they said they will wait until the train is fixed because they believe that is a safer and better option. I had to plead with them to let us move them by road. I later discovered by road is 3.5 hours, whereas by train is 1.5 hours. And the people felt, they have a feeling in them they're going by train. So the confidence people have in us, the 5 states operating from Dangu, River State, Bayelsa State, Edo State, Delta State, and Kogi State, who use that line. Maybe I should ask the Federal Capital Territory, making 6. The confidence they repose in us to keep using this line because it is cheaper, it is safer, it is faster, and it is more convenient for them. We will not disappoint them. I made it clear to them that that line remains, as far as this government is concerned, the most important line.
Before we exit this part of the conversation,
across the states.
Let me just ask frontally, as the Managing Director of the Nigeria Railway Corporation, would you be proposing to the Ministry of Transportation the need for the installation of cameras, CCTV, and the construction of fence around Nigeria's rail tracks throughout the length and breadth that the rails, service? Would you be proposing that to assure Nigerians of their safety?
That is how we create some unsafe situation the way you describe it. We are using camera, we are using technology. We will propose. It's not for us to propose. We are already in that situation. You will notice some parts of Abuja, Kaduna, you see fences. They pull it down. So it's not just fences. It's not just camera. It's not just CCTV. What you need is men in boot on ground. You need surveillance technology. You need operational system that is safe. Then you need to do a lot of community engagement, and you need to be prepared in case it will happen. So those are 5 things you have to put in place. All right. And all these 5 things are in place. As soon as the mix is gotten right, you will see that. For information, I just came down from Lisbon and Porto in Portugal. They have vandalization. They have attack. I went to Saudi Arabia Rail Conference. The same thing was on discussion. So how they also have vandalization. I went to South Africa Rail Conference. The same issue was being discussed. So one way out that will make it easy for us is as soon as we move to electric and our lines are energized, you will see a reduction in vandalization. And that's what you are having with the blue line in Lagos State. Because it's electric, they won't go there. So I don't also forget, these rail lines are not just out on the streets. They are right of the area for development to come to them. And even when the camera picks something, or when the geofencing picks something, you will need men on the boot to rush to the scene to arrest the situation. So all are necessary. All are on the table. All are being deployed. As soon as the finances and the available funding permits, we will deploy everything possible. You can see we even have surveillance helicopter going along the tracks.
Mr. Kwefa,
you may not notice them. That you have military men along all the tracks. You may not notice it, but when devil wants to strike, devil will look for a devilish opportunity to strike. Our responsibility is to make sure that opportunity does not occur.
We have to round off our conversation with you in just a moment. I mean, it's always a joy to listen to you do this analysis. But the reality on ground is that, for instance, Nigerians, we like to travel a lot. And we are in that season, the festive season is here, when there's going to be a lot of traveling. Speak to us about perhaps your plans, the NRC, the plans of the NRC for Nigerians who are going to be traveling this period. And then, of course, remind us again about the big vision of the NRC in terms of connecting or linking the North with the South, for instance. The same way people go by road and by air, people also want, some Nigerians are craving, they cannot wait to see when they can take a train, for instance, from Lagos to Calabar and Cross River State, or from Abuja or from Borno State down to the south. My experiences with train, service in Nigeria is that I've only had to do, I think, Niger State to Lagos so many years ago, and then it's always just been Lagos to Ibadan, Ibadan back to Lagos. So when do we intend to make this a full-blown, straight from north to south or south to north?
Thank you very much. Let me go straight to the plan. Is that the first one is to optimize what we have. What we have now is the Lagos, Kano, Unguru, Karura, Namoda line that runs from the Lagos ports to Kano, then branches to Unguru and Karura, Namoda in Yobe and Zamfara State. We want to get that track fully operational. That would take us 3 to 6 months, whenever the funds is available. And once that is ready, you will see less number of trucks on the road, especially around Mokwa, Jeba, Niger, Kogi, Okene area. That will make our road safer and will reduce the carnage on the road. That's number one. Also, when we get that route fully back to normal, what we see is that many states of the country will start railing with the states. Will start running their intra-state city public transport within those areas. Number two is we have started what you call the track access program. We are now encouraging the private sector to come and take up, they call it something like ride share, and use our tracks which are available. Now, on the standard gauge, we are linking them to the ports to make sure that we reduce the number of trucks moving cargo on our roads and the rest. Now, for Christmas, for the year coming to up to January, we are getting prepared for Dirty December, and we have just shown the sample with the wedding on the train. And many people don't understand that train was actually a passenger train, a regular moving passenger train, where somebody had a wedding program on that train. And since that period, we've started getting a lot of requests for people to have. So our train lines will be made safer than what it is now as we move to December. And I know government is also planning, the federal government is also planning the possible free ride or whatever freebies that will come. We are prepared. We are also retooling the coaches. We are refurbishing the seats. We are working on the air conditioning system. And we want to tell Nigerians, both home and abroad, diasporans, as you come, you need to use our train. We'll make them much more available for you, to be available, to be accessible. We are working on our stations to make them cleaner and more modern. Whatever we have, we are working to make them better. And we want to assure both the government and the people that the Nigerian Railway Corporation is going through a restructuring, reformation, revitalization to make sure that we are more customer-oriented. And on the cargo area, we are partnering with the private sector to put up more freight yards so that people have more options, and to complete the Lagos-Kano standard gauge. Already the Kano-Kaduna is ongoing. The Kano-Maradi GBR Daura is ongoing. Then we also plan to push the Aba to Enugu within this short period, and we also plan to move Ibadan to Osogbo and subsequently to Minna and Abuja. Those are some of the plans on ground. And in terms of customer experience, the customer service department has been created, was never there before, and this department is now engaging more with customers, and there will now be better customer experience. We have no option than to put in the best, and that's why Mr. President has charged us. He wants a railway that compares with any other railway in the world. And that's what we are supposed to do.
And we would really have loved to follow up on, more questions on the standard rail gauge, and the cargo service part of the NRC because of the concern of articulated vehicles on the road. Thank you for that update, but we look forward to another opportunity to have you expatiate more on that, particularly with questions on cost and the implications of an expansive operation in the cargo area. And it is pleasant, in fact, heartwarming to see that, the NRC is attracting a lot of attention with, other services beyond transport. The weddings, that, we saw on Nigeria's train was really, really heartwarming to note, and it took the internet by storm. We commend your service, for that, and we look forward to more services like that with the NRC. We've been talking with Dr. Kadi Okwefa, the Managing Director of the Nigeria Railway Corporation. Thank you for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you, channels. Thank you, Nigeria. Thank you, the group.
And so we head straight to the next level of our conversation. This time we're looking at the PDP national leadership crisis. But we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll begin. Stay with us. Welcome back. And so when we thought that the National Convention of the People's Democratic Party was going to hold in November, despite the litigation that seemed as an obstruction, it seems as if the crisis in the party is getting even deeper and more concerning, with suspensions and counter-suspensions that took place over the weekend. The Wike faction of the group, as we now see over the weekend, suspended the national chairman. And earlier on, the national chairman had suspended the national secretary of the party, the national legal advisor, and 2 others. So is this the final straw that has broken the camel's back as far as the PDP is concerned? Let's talk to one of the founding members, if you like, of the PDP in Lagos, Mr. Adedeji Doherty, former chairman, PDP Lagos State, and former organizing secretary, PDP Southwest Zone, who joins us virtually on the program. Good morning, Mr. Doherty. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
And so I'm going to start with an extreme. Is the challenge of the PDP spiritual rather than physical? It seems as if the crisis, is getting deeper and eating deeper into the soul of the PDP.
Well, definitely, I'll say, thank you for having me this morning. And before I start, I would like to congratulate Honorable Abdul Rahman as the acting chairman of the People's Democratic Party today. I hope he is able to succeed in getting the party back on track. We pray for him. I will stand with him. Having said that, the problem of the People's Democratic Party did not start today. It didn't start last year. It didn't start before. It didn't start when the president came in, which is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It started quite way back, and unfortunately, over the years, the PDP has diverted from what the founding fathers wanted it to be like, and that is the rule of law. Your commitment to the constitution of the party, following the guidelines of the party, following the tradition of the party, which opens its doors to everybody, Christian, Muslim, traditional, everybody, whether you're from the north, you're from the south, you're from the east, you could become anything in the People's Democratic Party. Whether you are rich, whether you are poor, it is a party that embraced everybody in this country. It was a melting point of unity and it was also a party that protected the democracy it led. Now, having said that, unfortunately, you understand, the influx of this very, I don't know how to put it because it involves the governors. When you have this governors forum, the governors now came to destabilize whatever the NWC and the structure of the party had created. Now, there were two levels of authority within the party, especially when you did not have a president. When we had a president, it wasn't so. But once the president left the scene and we didn't have a president, then the Governors Forum created its own authority. And this has what has led to a lot of them going in and out, making, trying to turn things around. However, they had two sets of governors. One set of governors still followed the rule by coercing, talking to people, financing, listening, coming to terms with even those that were not happy. An example of those governors are like Okowa, former Okowa, Diri, Wike, Eno, these are governors that kept the party going. But if they saw that you were not happy in the north or you are not happy in the east, they don't impose, they don't trifle you, they don't squeeze you, they don't malign you, what they do is that they call you, they talk to you, they even go as far as begging you. You understand? An example is Koshedo, that is in the Deputy National Secretary today. Okay, I was supposed to be the National Deputy Secretary. Wike called me, Sheyi Makinde called me, they begged me, they coerced, they said, look, let us look at it like this, let us look at it like that, and I handed over that position to him. Now, whatever happened after that is another thing. What is happening today is that one particular governor from the Southwest is the one controlling the whole party and trying to frisk everybody. And trying to squeeze everybody, remove this person, remove that person, screen out this person, keep this person away. And it does not work in PDP because he's a governor, but he doesn't understand the tradition of this party.
Engineer Doherty.
We have been in the party since 1998. Yeah. You understand? He came in probably in the late 2000s.
Yes.
You understand? And this is the person that is really creating the problem. And when you meet, sorry to say, when you meet people that are ready to face those kind of tyranny within the party, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's negative, whether it's positive, as a politician, what you want to do is just win against that person. And that is what is happening. People want to win. And in trying to win, they are ready to do and undo anything until the party now gets to that point where we follow the Constitution, we follow the rule of law, we open the doors, and then we mind our business in our various states. You don't stay in your state and then go to other states and start putting those states into chaos just because you and Chief Bode want to presidential power. That won't work.
Engineer Doherty,
it won't work.
Yes, so it's always interesting to listen to you politicians. In fact, let me say this again. It's always interesting to listen to Nigerian politicians talk because there are two governors in the Southwest who are still PDP. One is in Oyo State and the other is in Osun State. Yeah, there are two governors. So I'm wondering which of them you're referring to. For start, let's start from there.
Listen to me, right? The main thing is this, right?
Now,
which governor?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which governor, but I can tell you that it is your state governor. Listen, that's why I mentioned presidential ambition.
All right.
The other governor does not have a presidential ambition.
All right.
Listen, I'm not afraid to say who it is because I'm not a professional politician. What I want is the rule of law to be followed.
Yes.
And these guys do not follow it. They come on TV, George. It is for them to walk their talk. Right.
So let me
walk your talk.
Yeah,
Don't get on TV and say all this kind of
so
things.
let me get to ask my question then. I mean, because this split has further intensified the issues in your party, two warring factions as it stands right now. And I had to take a moment and listen to you because you are a governorship aspirant here in Lagos State, so you could have been a governor as well. Perhaps, you know, the narrative would have been different in Doherty. So it seems that you are on the side of the FCT minister, whom you have listed as some of the, persons who is really holding on to the party and doing well. But there are those who think that the FCT minister, who is still a PDP member, should have been suspended from your party a long time ago. So how do you respond to that argument? That's the first question. My second question is,
do you want to listen?
No, there are two questions in one. So my second question is, it looks like your party has completely fallen apart. Is there a way back for the PDP, and just how will this work?
Okay, now let me tell you something. Let me just explain something straight to you. Before this issue with Wike, because Wike is a human being, he's a governor, so he has feelings, whatever it is. There was an IU-led ESCO. Okay?
Yeah.
That IU-led ESCO was the one that really created the major problem that is happening. Wike has been a staunch member of the People's Democratic Party up till this point. Now, when I was chairman was when I had, I was able to deal with him to know the kind of person he is. But like I said, I am not a professional politician. What I just see is the truth. Now, as far as Wike is concerned, Wike had agreed that he had lost the presidential election. Okay, that's a fact. The other fact is that Wike sat down with the Atiku-led and discussed. They agreed to some things, but those things were not done. That hurt him. And remember, there were G5s. There were G5, including the governor of Oyo State. So that is the beginning of the problem. How has the governor now turned to be one person that shouldn't be suspended out of the party for all the things that the five of them did, and it's only Wike that should be suspended? I don't think so, because I know that Wike and the governor of Oyo State both sat and agreed on this southern presidency. Now, having agreed on the southern presidency, can you find out what happened that made one of the five turn against the four? Okay? Now, you now come up and be holier than thou. I don't accept that.
You tell us, sir.
You had already, I was the presidential campaign chairman for Atiku in Lagos.
Mr.
And I
Doherty,
know what Chief Bode George and Seyi Makinde did. You understand?
Mr. Doherty.
At the end of the day, this is where the problem had started from. So if we don't go back to that, right, then we will not be able to move forward.
Mr. Doherty, You tell us what happened. Why did they fall out? They were in the same camp before, and they worked together as G5 to help the All Progressives win the election. We know that. Mr. Wike didn't hide it. So what happened that Mr. Wike and Mr. Makinde fell out?
So this is a question that you should ask Sheyi Makinde, Bode George, and Chief and Governor Wike. Not me. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. What I know is this, that at the end of the day, the office of the organizing secretary, throughout from the congresses, throughout from the Congress, from the World Congress to the local government Congress to the state Congress, the actions of Sheyi Makinde, the actions of Chief Bode George, the actions of the Director of Mobilization and Organization was all against the constitution of the party. And I told them, I said, you can go ahead, screen me out, whatever you want to do. You can go ahead, change all the ad hoc delegates' results. But you know what? The result is going to wait for you at the general election. And that's exactly what happened. You disenchant and disenfranchise the members of the party. They all wait. Nobody wants to go to court and all those things anymore. Go to court, go to court, go to court, go to court. Nobody wants to do that anymore because it's a futile exercise. What you just do is just wait and watch and then fold your arms during elections. And then the other party wins. You don't have to go and vote for the APC. The APC do their job. They work. Let me tell you something. Out of all the political parties that I know in Lagos, in Nigeria, it is the APC that goes into other political parties to go and to woo people into their party. The PDP doesn't do that. The SDP don't do that. All of them. Do you know how many times the APC has come to me and I've said no? Even that deputy governors.
I'm glad that you have mentioned that. I'm glad that you have mentioned that because I mean, yes, Angel Dorothy, I'm glad that you have mentioned that the APC has come to you because there are those who even think that the PDP in Lagos.
Yes, to my
there are those who even think that the
PDP in Lagos. I cannot go anywhere else.
Yes, I mean, sorry, there's that failure in our network. But there are those who even think, I'm glad that you mentioned that because there are those who think that the PDP in Lagos is always just working for the APC. So I'm glad that you have tried to mention that to us this morning. But I mean, I'd asked a question earlier as to, is there a way back for the PDP and how? And then let me also ask you, because people say that, yes, the FCT minister, Mr. Nyesom Wike, is hot. But there are those who think that, I mean, let's lay this to rest and move on and build a new party. Is it not time for the FCT minister to just move on and let the past go?
Let me say something. With all due respect to all those involved, okay? With all due respect, there is a way out for the party. The only way out is for everybody to follow the Constitution. Listen, you want to do a national convention in November. In Lagos, we did a local government congress. We don't have the results up to today. We did they did a state congress on a state executive that their term is going to expire next year, March. Who does that? Now, having said that again, at the end of the day, you have a problem. And the problem you have is that one particular governor decided to buy the forms. You know, if I had this interview in my office, I will show you a bunch of forms that have not even been filled, that were dished out by the governor of your state through Koshedo in Abuja. Who does that? You come from Oyo State, you come to Lagos State, you buy only one form. They never sold any form to anybody. Look at what is happening now at the national convention. You want to do a national convention? There is no, we don't even know who are those participating. We don't know who are those contesting. We don't know who are those that have picked up form. The only person that we have seen that is a consensus chairman. Then you have Arapaja that has collected the form for national secretary. So you tell me, the governor was one that picked Arapaja for Southwest chairman. Yeah. He picked Arapaja for vice chairman Southwest. He is now picked Arapaja again for secretary. Come on, it's such a purity. And just because you are a governor, see, we have other governors that have come and gone. We have had Akala, we have Ladoja, we have had a lot of people in Oyo State that have been governors. So I don't understand it.
Well,
really, I don't understand it.
Mr. Doherty, political watchers would also...
Maybe what you said about spirituality in this problem, maybe it is maybe spiritual. I might even agree that it is spiritual.
Oh my word.
Mr. Doherty, some would argue some would argue that former Governor Wike is also fomenting trouble.
Believe me, because when people behave like this, I don't understand.
Mr. Doherty, some would argue that former Governor Wike is also fomenting trouble within the APC in River State as well, and wonder why he wants to control all of the structure in River State. But we must anchor at this point and wish you well, really, ahead of that national convention that is now merged in litigation.
About that.
We don't have any other.
Assisted the IAPC to win River State.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I will advise that if he wants to control River State APC, that's fine. What I will not get into is what he has with Fubara. I don't want to go into that. But when it comes to the political side, you understand, I think that he did quite a lot of work for Mr. President in River State. You understand?
All right, Mr. Adedeji Doherty is former chairman, PDP Lagos State, and former organizing secretary, PDP Southwest Zone. Thank you for all of the revelations that you have brought through on this one. We look forward to another time with you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And what a way to start off the week. It's been very interesting hanging out with you. Thank you for your company. We'll be back again tomorrow and indeed all through the week. I am Bukola Koka.
From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga. Stay with us here on Channels TV. Sunrise Daily is next. Good morning.